What it is, YouTube? It's your boy Troy, and I know hoops. And man, the NBA Finals are here. After months and months of waiting to see who was going to be the best team in the league, after months and months of seeing all the propaganda, all the what ifs, all the predictions, we are now finally at this moment in time where we finally get to crown a new NBA champion. And man, it was a cool ride. It was a cool playoffs, man. One thing I will say though, one thing I will say about these playoffs, round one, very entertaining to me personally. I enjoyed round one. Second round, not so much. All duds for real. Conference finals, only one side was obviously entertaining. I'm gonna get to that game in a little bit, but man, man, can't believe the season's already about to wrap up, man. I'm gonna do a video on the lottery because I definitely missed some time. The lottery has to be talked about. These teams that lost in the playoffs had to be talked about. But for right now, we're gonna focus on these two teams. So let's talk about the matchup between the Spurs and the Knicks. It's really a rematch. I'm pretty sure they faced off in 1999, if I'm not mistaken. Let me fact check that actually. Yep, I was right. 1999. Pat on the back for me. But okay, man. So we're gonna start out with the Knicks, man. The Knicks. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man. They remained a title favorite, or at least a team that was going to the finals for the Eastern Conference since the beginning of the season. Even before that, I'm not gonna lie. When we found out that Hallie wasn't going to play, and we found out that Tatum was going to be out for a minute, but he might play. We didn't really know. Then we also knew, obviously, Embiid was going to miss some time or whatever. We all, at least me, I feel like if the Knicks wasn't going to go to the finals this season, they ain't going to do it next season. They ain't going to do it next season or a season after that. Because, first of all, look at the situation that's at hand. You lose some of the best players in the East. You know, Dame leaves the Bucks. You know, he's back in the West now. And, you know, it's not really a lot of competition unless, like, these teams are, like, going to start coming up and starting to, you know, break into that new dynasty mode or whatever that they need to do to be an elite team. But I'm pretty sure almost everyone thought the Knicks were at least going to the conference finals. Now, they had no excuse to not, you know, make the finals. And what I find interesting about that is I feel like since they lost last year in the conference finals, it was definitely an automatic lock that they were going to be above the second round, right? And then they kept their same core. Nobody really got hurt. Nobody really got traded for real, you know, later in the offseason, in the season, sure. But they didn't really make no astronomical changes to not be back to where they were at in the conference finals. So I think all in all, I don't think anyone's surprised that they made it this far, honestly. It did look a little bad in the beginning of the season. Now, they won the NBA Cup. They won the NBA Cup against the Spurs. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But after that, I want to say in January, they lost like 9 of their 11 games. And it looked a little bad. And it also had like a propaganda going around that Karl Anthony Towns wasn't really happy with the offense. And he wasn't happy that he wasn't really involved in the game plan. And it was really looking really perimeter centric. And, you know, it helped out Jalen Brunson. It helped out OG, Mikal, obviously, but Cat wasn't really getting the love. But then their season turned around, obviously. They were one of the best teams in the league. Finished out pretty good. They get to the playoffs. They lose 2 games to Atlanta for whatever reason. They was giving up magnet ball to CJ McCollum. Still didn't explain that. And then after that, they didn't lose since April 23rd. That's almost a month and a half. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't lose for a minute, man. They swept the Sixers, then they swept the Cavs, and now they're here. You know, looking like the most dominant team in the playoffs thus far. And honestly, with the Knicks, like I said, this is something that probably should have been expected by most teams. Like, I'm pretty sure they were favored to go to the finals. You know what I mean? Obviously, they weren't the first or second seed, but this was the more complete team, right? If you were really looking at it in the microscope, like, this was the most complete team. Obviously, Pistons were the first seed, but you knew they had their complications. Then you had the Boston Celtics, who were good, right? And that was supposed to be really a break season for them, honestly. Tatum wasn't playing. They lost a couple of their pieces. Jaylen Brown was going to be at the helm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people didn't really expect Boston to be where they were at. Some people I know definitely thought they were going to be, like, playing, but not no second seed. But you see how that ended up. Even Tatum actually ended up coming back, but it didn't really matter, you know? But aside from that, I feel like people really knew the Knicks were more of a complete team, but they still had their concerns because they're the Knicks. But all in all, the Knicks are here, and they're looking like the most dominant team in the playoffs right now. But it's something about them Spurs, man. It's something about them Spurs looking a little concerning. I don't know. The San Antonio Spurs, man. San Antonio Spurs. Honestly, me, and I know most people definitely probably wasn't expecting this crazy leap. You know? Had a high draft pick with Dylan Harper. Didn't really end the season how they wanted to last year because Wemby was hurt. And they were still kind of putting the pieces together. But I don't think anybody was expecting them to win over 60 games and got a second seed. You know what I mean? Let's also talk about, you know, for a lot of those games, Wemby didn't play. Wemby didn't play, but the Spurs were still a pretty good team. They made it to the NBA Cup. They beat the OKC Thunder, which was actually one of the numerous of times they beat the OKC Thunder. And you're kind of looking at this team and you're like, damn, like Wemby is barely even playing. But when Wemby does play, he a top 5 player in the league. The best defender in the league by far. Then when you talk about his offensive game, he's really unstoppable when he's on, bro. Pulling from half court, pulling from near the logo, and then obviously you can't beat him on the inside because he's 7'5". But on top of that, Wemby is not a sloppy 7'5". He doesn't have sloppy inside play at all. He's very articulate. You know, his footwork is pretty good for a guy his size. But aside from that, the help he had, Stephon Castle, did extremely well, became a really good combo guard. Honestly, with De'Aaron Fox, I thought they didn't really need De'Aaron Fox. I honestly thought De'Aaron Fox being there was kind of like a waste because kind of got in the way. To me, it kind of got in the way of Dylan Harper, their rookie, who, man, you talk about somebody that's literally NBA ready in his only year one. You can watch Dylan Harper play and you would assume he'd been in the league for like 4 or 5 years. Like, he built different. He's built different. Dylan Harper is actually one of the best young players in the league, man. And it's only crazy because this is only year one. Stephon Castle, another guy that's also pretty good. And just the support and help they had too. Harrison Barnes, Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. Like, they had a good overall constructed team. Now, even though Wemby was hurt and they were still consistent, obviously they still needed Wemby. Wemby takes up for like 3 people on defense anyway. But his offense was definitely needed as well. But with all due respect, they were still good. They were still cooking. They still won over 60 games, became a second seed. Like I said, beating OKC 3 times, and then, you know, they were obviously in the NBA Cup. But you also kind of still was on the realm of, yo, they're still a little young. So can they really make a deep playoff run? And they did. They made a deep playoff run, and now they're in the finals. This is Wemby's first year in the playoffs. This is a lot of their first years in the playoffs. Obviously, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, Wemby, and then, you know, their supporting roles. You know, Julian Champagnie came from the Sixers, got traded over there, immediately blossomed. De'Aaron Fox, he has playoff experience, but he was on the Sacramento Kings. That's enough explanation. He is now in the finals. You know what I mean? Harrison Barnes, great vet in the NBA finals. Luke Cornett has a championship, NBA finals, you know? So their whole team, right, and how their team is orchestrated, they're young, but they can still win, and they can still win you important games. And we clearly seen first round, beat the Portland Trailblazers, wasn't no big deal, beat them in 5. Second round, beat the Timberwolves in 6, took a little longer time, but they still managed to do it. And the best team in basketball, the OKC Thunder, they took them to 7 games and then beat them in game 7 on their home floor. Not only that, they beat them 3 times in the regular season. So, you know, obviously OKC was hurt in this playoff series, you know what I'm saying? But it's still OKC. They're still the defending champions, you know what I mean? And they still also had complementary pieces to the players that were injured or didn't have a good game. So, you know, it's still like, you still look at this team, they're still young. They're still kind of inexperienced, but First time that all these guys are together and they make a finals run. That's crazy to think about, man. It's crazy to think about. And you could say the same thing for the Knicks as well. There are a lot of guys that have been in playoffs and that have been in many playoff series. You know, Jalen Brunson, conference finals guy, never been to the finals. Mikal Bridges was in the finals. Who else? OG Anunoby was in the finals. Cat, conference finals guy. Mitchell Robinson, conference finals guy. You know, so only a select few people have been in the finals on the Knicks, but they all overall still have playoff pedigree. Some of them also have championship pedigree. So it's like the Knicks are definitely like more in tune for this playoffs and for this moment exactly that we're talking about right now for the finals. But it's hard to ignore the Spurs, bro. It's hard to ignore the younger talent of the Spurs. And also they have a top 5 player on their team as well. You can argue Jalen Brunson is a top 7 player in the league. I'll agree. I think Jalen Brunson is a top 7 player in the league. But besides that, Jalen Brunson just has, I'm not going to say he has a better orchestrated team around him. But low-key, I can say that. You know, it kind of depends on what you want as a fan and as a basketball viewer, honestly. But, man, I couldn't think of a better matchup. I actually didn't really want OKC to win because I knew OKC was banged up, and if they would have beat the Spurs, they would have got killed against the Knicks because it was already defensively hard for Shea to do anything because the Spurs are also very good on the perimeter with their defense. And that was Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper was playing really good, Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson. They were throwing people at Shea. Imagine throwing OG, Mikal, all at Shea at once. That would have been crazy. So I'm glad OKC didn't make it. They got a lot to do in the offseason, honestly, whether people want to admit it or not. I think OKC is going to be pretty busy in the offseason, but shout out to the Spurs for getting this far, man. Wemby's first playoff run, and he's already in the NBA Finals. That's insane. That's crazy. That's crazy. Wemby has been to more finals than the Clippers. Let me not talk about that. Now, before I get into who I think is going to win this finals matchup, I just want to talk about the few times that the Knicks and the Spurs have actually met in this current NBA season, man. So they met each other in their NBA Cup Finals. It's crazy because that last team to be a runner-up in the NBA Cup Finals was the OKC Thunder last year, and they went on to win the chip. Now, the Spurs were actually the runner-up for the NBA Cup Finals. They lost to the Knicks. And it's crazy because the Spurs led the whole game damn near. They were also up by double digits in the third quarter. The Knicks came back and won, obviously. But the story about that was the Knicks out-rebounded the Spurs and also outscored them in the paint. But at the same time, it was Wemby's second game back, and he was also on a minute restriction. I think he only played 25 minutes. So while it is kind of like a decent sample size, it was also like half of what could have actually determined that game, honestly, because Wemby barely played. They actually played 2 more times in the regular season after that. They played the second time later on in the same month. Knicks actually had a crazy lead. They had a 19-point lead in the second quarter, but the Spurs came back and won in the fourth quarter. But Wemby actually went down early in the fourth. I think, not even early. I think like with 6 minutes left. But Julian Champagnie went crazy. Like I said, like, the supporting cast, it's going to be about the supporting cast in this finals, of course. Julian Champagnie had 36 points that game. Mitchell Robinson also didn't play for the Knicks, so the Knicks got out-rebounded. And this actually started the bad stretch I was talking about for the Knicks. They actually, after this game, went on to lose 9 out of their 11 games in January. It was looking pretty bad for them. But the Spurs remained hot until February after that. And then there was a third game. The Knicks won. They were led by double digits for most of the game. Like I said, out-rebounded, scored more points than the Spurs. It's actually crazy because Wemby going against the Knicks, he's actually played very, very good. He averages about 30 points and 14 boards when playing against the Knicks. He also had 42 points on the Knicks on Christmas back in 2024. I was watching that game. That shit was crazy. You know, I think a huge thing for the Knicks, man, obviously, they're going to have to need more playmaking when it comes to the Spurs, especially considering like their perimeter defense. And then on top of that, they're in the paint defense, obviously, because of Wemby. This is where you kind of got to get Cat involved in the playmaking now. Crazy thing is, Cat is actually a very good playmaker for a center, man. Cat can average around like 4 to 5 assists, and he's actually a very good playmaker when it comes to getting people open, you know, crowding around in the paint. getting the defense to be up on them. Then you can pass it out to whoever's open, to OG, Mikal, Jalen Brunson, Jordan Clarkson, whoever's in the game at the time, Landry Shamet. So honestly, my game plan if I'm the Knicks, bro, make shots and force more playmaking, bro. It can't just be Jalen Brunson, especially considering that they can just throw people at Jalen Brunson, the Spurs team. And somebody else has to, get more people open, and somebody else has to get the team involved more. Now, if you're the Spurs, obviously defense. You want your guards to play the best when it comes to Jalen Brunson and this Knicks team, because this Knicks team can just outright flood people. And they also have to knock down shots. I feel like the Spurs, they have some great shooters like Devin Vassell, good shooter. Julian Champagnie, great shooter. Wemby's a good shooter. Stephon Castle has his games, but like De'Aaron Fox, he's also a pretty good shooter. But Fox is also banged up with like an ankle problem or something. Speaking of Fox, if we talking about key players, man, De'Aaron Fox on offense and Stephon Castle on defense and offense, actually, I think those are the most two important people on the Spurs, especially considering Stephon Castle is very turnover heavy. Obviously, that's when Fox isn't playing, and that's where you kind of need Fox to kind of take advantage of the playmaking and take advantage of his skill set. But you need Stephon Castle on defense as well, because Stephon Castle is one of the better combo guards in the league. So him being a menace on defense when it comes to Jalen Brunson, because he was also getting right with Shea. He was getting right with Shea in that playoff series. So having him be important on defense, but then also not playing defense on his own damn team, creating turnovers and things like that, that definitely helps for sure. I think the first 2-3 games, Stephon Castle had 20 turnovers versus the OKC Thunder. And if you want to be honest, like the Knicks are damn near one of the better defensive teams. They're almost right with the Thunder on that spectrum. But for the Knicks, their most important players to me is going to be Mikal Bridges and their bigs, Cat and Mitchell Robinson. Now, when it comes to Mikal Bridges, bro, you now are in a position where this is what the Knicks brought you in for. This is the exact situation that the Knicks brought you in for. 5 first-round picks for you, bro. 5. And there are games where he coasts. There are games when he really doesn't do nothing and he don't really have to. But this is the finals, bro. And you're also going up against one of the best teams in the league as well. This isn't the Hawks. This isn't the Sixers. This isn't the Cavs. You know what I mean? So with Mikal, he has to knock down his shots. He can't finish a game below 10 points. For a 12. I really wanted to boost to 12, but he cannot finish a game below 10 points. I'm going to be honest with you, because it's going to be times where it's going to be shootouts, bro. And Mikal's going to have to participate in that. It can't always be OG. It can't always be Jalen Brunson. Jordan Clarkson can't save him off the bench. Landry Shamet isn't always going to have games where he's going to have a random 30 ball or a 25 ball. It has to start and end with Mikal Bridges, especially on defense as well. If he wants to play against Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, I'm pretty sure they're going to want to put him on Wemby, because, what OKC was doing, they were trying to like have Caruso on Wemby, Dort on Wemby, like all these people trying to like, get Wemby out of his spots in terms of where he's at in the paint. But honestly, bro, that's where Mikal comes in. Mikal is bigger, also OG, but I trust OG more than I trust Mikal 100%. And like I said, they're bigs as well. Cat, he has to be the second best playmaker on that team. I'm not gonna lie, he has to be the second best playmaker on that team. He also has to make shots. He has to make 3-pointers. And then a lot of people are going to look at this matchup. Cat already gets made fun of on social media for whatever. And you also got to look at him going up against Wemby. He's going up against Wemby now. And not to glaze Wemby, but Cat got to prove that he ain't no punk. That's really what he got to do. Cat has to prove that he ain't just going to let this young dude, come up in here and take all the shine. You know what I mean? This is my first finals too. Fuck that. I'm trying just as hard. And then Mitchell Robinson, obviously, for the dirty work and the rebounding. This is where a lot of the rebounding can come in now. It said that he was hurt, something about his finger or something, but he should be good to go and ready. And they're going to need him, I'm not going to lie, because you ain't going to trust Cat to grab 10 boards almost every game. He can, but, you never know when the lights are too bright for somebody, or you never really know how Cat is going to react in most games. Now, who do I think is going to win? I really don't know. I think it's all going to come down to those pointers. I think points in the paint and rebounding is what's going to come down to the most. Obviously, the scorers are going to score. It's 2 good defenses, but the scorers are going to score. It is what it is. But who's going to do the dirty work? That's where the Knicks obviously have Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, OG when he wants to. It's like the Knicks just have, I feel like, more people that are willing to do that dirty work than the Spurs. But you also can't really count out the Spurs, bro. They just beat the best team in the league. They had 60 wins all season. Like, you just can't count the Spurs out. Their offense is very shaky sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, their offense is, like, even their defense, like, when Wemby gets out the game, it's bad. They just attack Luke Cornett. But Luke Cornett turned into LeBron James for, like, 5 seconds in that chase down block versus OKC. So, I don't know. If he can get that out more often in this series, then probably. But if I'm going to be 100% honest, right? If I'm going to be 100% honest, I think it also is about the home games as well. You know Madison Square Garden is going to be rocking. First finals since like the 90s, bro. They're going to be rocking. I'm not going to lie. But this is also where the Spurs, San Antonio crowd has to come in as well. They got to come in amped up because you already know Madison Square Garden going to bring that shit. I think the Spurs arena also has to bring it as well, man. Like, this is their first finals since, I want to say, 2014? Since they won, Kawhi, Tim Duncan and shit. Like, so that's their first finals in like 12 years. This is the Knicks' first finals in like 30-something years. So, like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Actually, no, not 30-something. They have been to the finals since 99. So, 27. I'm dumb with math. But, yeah, 27 years, man, probably. But, yeah, man. Both these teams ain't been in the finals in a while. Knicks definitely deserve it. Spurs also deserve it, man. Even though it's kind of crazy how they got another dynasty, like, then they're not even 10 years after their dynasty was done, you know what I mean? But it is what it is, man. Honestly, if I did have to pick a team, though, I think this series is obviously going to go. I think this series is going to go like 6-7 games, but I might go Knicks. Bro. I think Knicks just have a better team overall. Like, Spurs have the better player, but that doesn't mean shit. I think the Knicks just have a better team. They have a better supporting cast. They have more guys that's going to get down in the paint, get dirty with the boards, defensively. Like, all the dirty work is going to, all the hustle. Like, I think the Knicks got it. I think the Knicks got it way more than the Spurs. Spurs are a great team, though. They had a great run, but I honestly think the run stops here, and I think the Knicks will win in like 6 games, maybe 7. Maybe they can steal a game. I think also it really comes down to who wins the most home games, but whoever can control their home base the most when it comes to the wins department, I think that's who takes a series. Obviously, that's how a series works, but I feel like y'all know what I mean. Man. But yeah, man, that's my finals predictions, man. That's who I think is going to win the finals, man. I think the Knicks pull this out. But yeah, man, that's going to wrap it up for me, man. If y'all like the video today, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Turn the post notifications on. Going to be posting way more often. And I will see you guys in the next video, man. Thank you all for all the love. I really appreciate y'all. Peace.